Some truths don't destroy relationships, they reveal them. They unravel the illusions, peel back the emotional patterns hidden in plain sight, and force us to confront realities we've long sensed but never dared to define. When I first brought up the idea of this video with women in my life, friends, former partners, confidants, their reactions were unexpectedly unified. Each one, in her own way, encouraged me to leave the idea alone. Not because it was offensive, not because it was inaccurate, but because it was dangerous, not in its content, but in its clarity. They understood, this isn't just information, it's insight. And insight, once gained, changes everything. This video isn't an attack. It isn't about blame. It isn't about manipulation or game playing. It's a mirror, one few men have ever been shown. It reflects back the unspoken rules that often govern emotional attraction, connection, and behavior, especially when things get complicated. It's for the man who has felt confused after being ghosted, for the one who can't understand why things felt perfect then suddenly went cold, and for the one who keeps second-guessing his every word and action, wondering, what did I do wrong? Let's start with something no woman will say out loud because she doesn't have to. 1. The power of strategic silence. There is a chilling moment when a woman who once laughed at your jokes, responded instantly to your texts, and leaned into every conversation, goes quiet. Not ghosting, not angry, just quiet. This silence is not accidental, it's strategic. Most men interpret this as disinterest or moodiness, but in truth, this is where the real assessment begins. A woman's silence is a diagnostic tool. She steps back not to punish, but to observe, to measure who you become when her warmth is no longer immediately available. Silence, in her world, is not the absence of affection. It's a testing ground. She's reading your reactions. Do you chase? Do you get angry? Do you send 5 more texts to clarify your feelings? Or do you hold steady, composed, grounded in your... The silence isn't passive, it's charged. With every moment she doesn't reply, she's gathering psychological data about you, your neediness, your patience, your emotional depth. This isn't manipulation. It's instinctual. Women have been conditioned across generations to communicate through subtext and subtle cues. Not because they're deceptive, but because in many cultures. Emotional safety isn't always guaranteed through direct expression, A woman's silence is a mirror. It reflects back your own insecurities, your impulse to control, your discomfort with ambiguity, and the men who understand this, they don't panic, they don't perform, they breathe, they hold space. Not with desperation, but with confidence, because they know the silence is where the real emotional groundwork is being laid. The space between words reveals more than any conversation ever could. 2. The quiet art of emotional mirroring. Every emotionally intelligent woman has mastered a subtle but potent social art. Emotional mirroring. It's not fake, it's not manipulative, it's adaptive and incredibly effective. It works like this. She walks into a room and intuitively attunes herself to the emotional rhythm of the person in front of her. If you're energetic, she's responsive and warm. If you're calm and pensive, she slows down. Her gestures shift, her tone adapts, and suddenly, you feel seen, heard, understood. But this isn't just about connection, it's about information. While she's mirroring your energy, she's also watching you closely. Do you lead the emotional tone, or follow it? Are you consistent, or do you seek validation when she becomes more reserved? Do you adjust to her, or become reactive? She's not doing this maliciously. She's checking for emotional safety. She's evaluating your emotional bandwidth without having to ask intrusive questions. It's her way of knowing. Can I be myself with this man? Can he handle emotional complexity? Men often mistake this for chemistry. We just click, they say. And sometimes, you do. But more often, she's creating the illusion of chemistry to see if the connection holds when she no longer does all the emotional lifting. In relationships, emotional mirroring helps women assess 2 things. 1. Your emotional intelligence. Can you read between the lines? 2. Your self-worth. Can you stay grounded when the emotional current shifts? It's not a game. It's a filter. Why this matters more than you realize. If you've ever been blindsided by a breakup, confused by emotional withdrawal, or left analyzing a situation that felt perfect just weeks ago, know this: you weren't crazy. You weren't necessarily wrong, but you were likely unaware of the emotional terrain you were walking on. Women test not to destroy, but to feel safe. They observe not to manipulate, but to protect their hearts. They withhold not to punish, but to measure what remains when the instant gratification is gone. And now you know, not to fight it, not to resent it, but to grow through it. Because the man who understands the silent language of emotional power, who doesn't panic in the face of withdrawal, who leads not with pressure but with presence, that man stands out. That man becomes a rare emotional anchor in a world of noise, and that, perhaps, is what makes you truly irresistible. Here's a more detailed, polished, and immersive version of your article. It preserves your deep psychological insights while expanding each section for clarity and emotional depth to 1. The mirror, invitation, and investigation. Mirroring is not merely mimicry, it's a sophisticated emotional instrument, a kind of silent communication that allows a woman to understand without explicitly agreeing. When she mirrors a man's tone, language, or emotional tempo, she isn't necessarily affirming his beliefs or feelings. Rather, she's creating a reflective space where his truth can safely emerge. This mirroring offers a veil one through which a man might feel seen and understood, even cherished, without realizing the full nature of the exchange. He may feel an instant connection, sensing that his words and energy are flowing effortlessly into receptive ground. What he may not realize is that she is not just receiving, she is studying. Each moment becomes a micro-evaluation. Is this safe? Is this steady? Is this someone I can trust? Many men interpret this resonance as mutual investment. They confuse emotional alignment with emotional commitment. But what feels like connection may simply be observation, her way of tuning in before deciding whether to step closer or walk away. In a world where superficial cues like laughing at a joke or leaning into a conversation are often mistaken for real interest, emotional mirroring is more elusive and potent. The true test lies not in how often she smiles, but in how subtly she shifts her tone, moving from warmth to cool reserve, openness to analytic detachment without ever breaking her internal awareness of the man's reactions. If he rushes, she senses impulsiveness. If he retreats, she detects insecurity. If he remains steady, she begins to trust. This is why some women form seemingly quick bonds with many men but only commit to a few. They are emotionally fluent, not emotionally promiscuous. The mirroring is both a form of connection and a method of discernment. To understand, it is to recognize that what a woman mirrors is not always what she desires. It is what she's investigating. Her emotional reflection is not a promise. It is a question. Can you hold your ground while I explore the edges of mine? 2. The silent ranking system, an emotional hierarchy without speaking it, without even consciously constructing it. Many women carry an internal system, a psychological map, where the men in their orbit are sorted, ranked, and evaluated not by superficial traits, but by emotional signals. This ranking isn't born from vanity or manipulation. It's a system of emotional self-preservation. Over time, after heartbreaks, disappointments, and broken promises, she learns that attraction alone is not enough. Respect, consistency, and emotional clarity rise as currencies of real value. At the top of her internal ladder are the rare few who radiate a calm authority, men who move with purpose and integrity. They don't chase validation. Their value is not spoken loudly, but it is felt unmistakably. These men are trusted without needing to demand trust. Their messages are responded to first, not because they're loud, but because they're centered. Below them are the men who bring levity, entertainment, or temporary comfort. She enjoys their presence, laughs at their jokes, but feels no future. In their eyes, with them, the connection is circumstantial, not spiritual. Further down are the passive arbiters, the agreeable, ever-available men she tolerates but rarely misses. Their presence doesn't irritate, nor does it inspire. They hover at the edges of her world, offering everything but evoking little, and at the bottom lie those she distances herself from, those who triggered discomfort, crossed boundaries, or demanded more than she was willing to give. Their mistake may not have been malice, but they misunderstood attention for affection, presence for priority. Importantly, this ranking is fluid. A man once admired may fall if he becomes overly reactive, self-effacing, or disrespectful of her space. Another may quietly rise through consistency and grounded self-respect. Each interaction is a subtle test. Does he amplify my clarity or add confusion? Does he listen or merely wait to speak? Does he respect the emotional signals I'm quietly sending, or does he bulldoze them with assumptions? Her behavior is the answer. If she delays responses, grows distant, or withholds personal details, it's not always detachment, it's often revaluation. 3. The gatekeeping of intimacy. Defense disguised as delay *** across cultures and generations. Female sexuality has been wrapped in layers of expectation, risk, and contradiction. A woman is often taught early, whether by words, media, or experience, that her desire is both powerful and dangerous, that her attention is currency, that her vulnerability is a risk to manage. So when she delays intimacy, when she withholds expression or slows the pace of emotional exposure, it is not always disinterest. It is often instinct, a protective reflex encoded by years of subtle conditioning. Gatekeeping, then, is not about manipulation, it's about discernment. It's how she determines whether a man's interest is genuine or goal-oriented, his patience is performative or authentic, whether he sees her or just the story he wants her to fit into. Her unspoken tests are not games. They are checks for emotional intelligence. Asterisk, will he grow frustrated or stay steady? Will he handle resistance with respect or pressure? These quiet tests don't seek perfection, they seek presence. When a woman delays, it's not a closed door. It's a door watched carefully. And the man who doesn't rush through it, but instead waits not passively, but attentively something rare, emotional maturity. Then that moment, her armor begins to soften. Not because he passed the test, but because she felt safe enough to lower the drawbridge. Asterisk, asterisk 4. The subtle power of male competition, asterisk, asterisk in the early stages of attraction, especially when multiple men are present or implied. An ancient tension begins to stir. It may not be planned. It may not even be conscious, but it exists. The subtle orchestration of male competition. Women who understand male psychology, either through instinct or experience, know that a man's behavior shifts in the presence of rivals. His energy sharpens. He speaks with more intention. He leans forward instead of back. The possibility of another man's interest triggers the scarcity principle. Asterisk, if she is desired, she must be desirable. If I might lose her, I must act faster. Asterisk, this isn't manipulation in the cruel sense. It's often more subconscious than strategic. A glance, a mention of another man's compliment, or visible appreciation from others, these small signals can create ripples in male behavior. The danger, however, lies in overcompensation. A man driven by fear of loss starts performing. He loses his inner compass. He begins to evaluate himself not by his standards, but by how he stacks up against perceived rivals. This isn't connection, it's competition. The wise man steps back. He watches his own reactions. He asks, asterisk, am I pursuing her out of alignment or out of fear? Do I want her, or do I want to win her? Asterisk, when he chooses clarity over conquest, he returns to his emotional center. That groundedness, more than any tactic or performance, is what ultimately sets him apart, not as a contestant, but as a man worth choosing. 5. The male path to emotional mastery. Understanding these dynamics. Mirroring, emotional sorting, gatekeeping, and competition doesn't require paranoia or resentment. It requires emotional literacy. For men, the challenge is not to outplay these dynamics, but to stop being unwitting players in them. When a man chases approval, explains himself excessively, or tries to decode every nuance of her silence, he loses the one thing that could set him apart. Inner steadiness. The emotionally disciplined man doesn't need to be loud to be felt. He holds his posture when others react. He listens deeply, not to respond, but to understand. He doesn't confuse temporary attention for real connection, and he does not fear being tested because he's already passed the one that matters, his own. This kind of man doesn't beg to be chosen. He becomes the man who doesn't lose himself in the process of being seen. And in the eyes of a woman who values depth. That kind of man is unforgettable, not because he played the game well, but because he didn't need to play at all. Thank you for reading. Asterisk, asterisk, if this resonated, share your reflections. What have you noticed in your own relationships on either side of these dynamics? Your insights could be the bridge someone else needs to better understand their own journey. If you'd like to continue exploring the psychology of love, self-mastery, and emotional truth, consider subscribing. There's more to uncover, and your voice belongs in the conversation.